I know I really shouldn't read articles by Robert Reich. Uh, he was an economic advisor to Clinton back in the 90s, and he kind of hangs around now as a absolute political hack. I think he's regarded well on the left as some form of intellectual, and I suspect the guy is smart, but boy, he sure doesn't show it in his articles. So he had a little article that ended up being posted around the various left sites. The modern Republican Party is hurtling towards fascism. Well, that's one I can't leave alone, so let's play with it. Now, first thing to understand is I'm not a particularly huge fan of the Republican Party either. So it's, in 2016, I defended Hillary Clinton against people who were just making up nonsensical crap about her. Uh, and then later, later on, I'm ending up defending Trump for nonsensical things people are saying about him. And I don't like having to defend people that I completely disagree with, but uh, just out and out lies and demagoguery are really hard to just stand by and watch. And for some reason, Mr. Reich, because he claims to be an economic genius, although he's just another flaming Keynesian, it just kind of makes it worse somehow. Okay, so I'm going to be reading Reich's article and then basically interposing my comments. I'm going to use a different voice. It's not meant to mock him, it's just so you differentiate between what he's saying and what I'm saying. America no longer has two parties devoted to a democratic system of self-government. Yeah, I agree with that. It has none. Neither of the parties are committed to that. Um, Ultimately, they shouldn't be because we're a republic, but that's a whole nother thing. I think both parties are failing hideously at being able to do anything in terms of democracy, a republic, or the Constitution. We have a Democratic Party which, notwithstanding a few glaring counterexamples, such as the Democratic National Committee did to Bernie Sanders in 2016, is still largely committed to democracy. Okay, so in 2020, during the election, during the primaries for the Democratic Party, they shut off the mics of Williamson and Yang to shut them up because they weren't saying things that were towing the party line. In fact, they were probably saying things that would have forced Biden out into the open to have to defend himself on things. And then we get to South Carolina, and it's still a wide open primary, and then all of a sudden, the entire slate of candidates goes, "Whoop, we're all quitting. It's Biden." Yeah, that looks really good. And then changing the balloting rules 2 months before the elections. Ah, yes, democracy. Well, I guess we all just can define any word we want any way we want because it just doesn't matter. And we have the Republican Party, which is careening at high velocity towards authoritarianism. Okay, fascism. Oh, you are shameless. You know damn well what those words mean, and you're only using them to appeal to low information readers who think they know what those words mean. Pure demagoguery. The two Tennessee Democrats, who Republicans expelled from the Tennessee House, have been restored to their seats until special elections are held. But the damage to democracy cannot be easily undone. The two were not accused of criminal wrongdoing or even immoral conduct. Their putative offense was to protest against Tennessee's failure to enact stronger gun controls after a shooting at a Christian school in Nashville, which left 3 9-year-old students and 3 adults dead. Okay. It had nothing to do with them protesting. You're so full of it. They interrupted the proceedings of the legislatures, yelling over bullhorns, inciting people in the galleries, and preventing the debate and votes on bills. And you know that, and you omit it. They were technically in violation of the House rules, but the state legislature has never imposed so severe a penalty for rules violations. In fact, over the past years, several Tennessee legislators have kept their post, even after being charged with serious sexual misconduct. Okay, charged. That doesn't mean they actually did it. It means they were accused of it. Whereas in this case, there is no doubt about what these legislators were doing. They were standing in the middle of the legislature while it was in session, screaming over bullhorns. Whoever these people were who were accused of sexual misconduct, it wasn't like they were in the middle of the floor groping women, causing an uproar and stopping the legislature from doing his business. And 2 who were expelled last week were black people, while a 3rd legislator who demonstrated in the same manner but was not expelled is white. This is race-baiting nonsense. As widely reported, the white legislator narrowly avoided expulsion because several members cut her slack because she was the only one of them without a bullhorn. Democracy is about means. Under it, citizens don't have to agree on ends, as long as we agree on democratic means for handling our disagreements. So, legislators violating the rules of the legislature, shouting down debate, and preventing voting is democracy? Are you on crack? You are so two-faced that you can't keep track of your own logic from one paragraph to the next. For Trump Republicans, the ends justify whatever means they choose, including expelling lawmakers, rigging elections through gerrymandering, refusing to raise the debt ceiling, and denying the outcome of a legitimate presidential election. So you mean just like when Pelosi and Clinton called Trump an illegitimate president? Like when Stacey Abrams never conceded the loss in her race in government, and media was essentially backing her up for almost an entire year afterwards? Wisconsin may soon offer an even more chilling example. While liberals celebrated the election last Tuesday of Janet Protasiewicz to the Wisconsin Supreme Court because she will tip the court against the state's extreme gerrymandering and its fierce laws against abortion. Something else occurred on Wisconsin on election day that soon may well negate Prosaiewicz's victory. So, at one point, a Democratic Wisconsin lawmaker declared Wisconsin to be the number 1 or 2 worst gerrymandered state in the U.S. And from that point on, media quotes that as gospel. We know what gerrymandering is, but there's no criteria to discern whether one form of gerrymandering is worse than another. There's no way to rate them or rank them. Several weeks ago, Nodal said he would certainly consider impeaching Prosiewicz, although he was talking about her role as a county judge. His interest in impeaching her presumably has increased now that she's able to tip the state's highest court. So you're a mind reader. Okay. He specifically was talking about when she was sitting on the bench in her county because of her laxness basically she wasn't carrying out her duties. She was letting criminals go. He never said anything about impeaching her for being on the Supreme Court. Do you have just staffers writing up Democratic talking points and then you sign your name to this? Or are you really writing this? Here's what the Milwaukee Journal said, quote, "She has failed," Nodal said, when asked directly if he would consider supporting impeaching Protzwitz. Nodal said, "I certainly would consider it." Continuing the quote of the Milwaukee Journal, Nodal did not immediately say whether his comments meant he would consider voting in favor of impeaching Protzwitz if she was elected to the state Supreme Court on Tuesday. You, sir, are an intellectual malignancy. Meanwhile, a newly installed Republican supermajority in Florida has given Ron DeSantis unbridled control with total authority over the board governing Disney. Okay, Disney has been granted special self-government prerogatives since the 1960s. So you're in favor of favoritism, that all companies shouldn't be treated equally, that certain ones should get special treatment. Okay. Disney was essentially the equivalent of what we used to call a company town, which I'm pretty sure most Democrats were adamantly against. I mean, it would be like drawing a line around all the property Monsanto owns and turning it into its own government entity, free of county or any special interest a state, free of any other special districts the state might set up. All Florida did was re-level the playing field. The theme park giant has fought over his anti-LGBTQ don't say gay law. Seriously? You can't really believe there's an issue with this law. It's a law preventing sex from being discussed with kindergarteners. The word gay, or any way of describing what gay is not prohibited. What on earth would be your reason for siding with Disney on this? What is so interesting to you that you think kindergarteners through third or fourth graders need to have sex discussed in class? Permission to fly immigrants from anywhere in the U.S. to destinations of his own choosing for political purposes, and then send the bill to Florida taxpayers. Okay. And, this stuff is all really easy to find, so I know, okay, you have to be deliberately avoiding the facts. Okay? In all cases, migrants who were sent out of state knew which states they were being flown to. All of them volunteered. They said, hey, we're going to fly you to New York. Hey, we're going to fly you to Delaware, wherever they were sending them. And they said, okay, we know. Okay, we're going. So it probably saved them a lot of time and effort getting closer to where they wanted to get to. Flying them out was likely at a massive cost savings to the taxpayers. Rather than having to keep them there, process them, and work and deal with all the settling in issues, one ticket out, and now it becomes the cost of another state. But, that's basic economics. So from reading your past articles, I know that's one of your weak areas. And unprecedented prosecutorial power in the form of his newly created hand-picked Office of Election Integrity, pursuing supposed cases of voter fraud. Yes, how strange that the governor would hand-pick people for a task rather than farming it out to a temp agency or putting an ad in a newspaper. If they find supposed cases of voter fraud, any sanctions or guilt still has to come via the judiciary system. All they are is an investigatory arm. In these circumstances, partisanship turns into enmity, and political divisions morph into hatred. In warfare, there are no principles, only wins and losses. America experienced this 160 years ago when the Civil War tore us apart. Yeah, it was a sad day for the Democrat Party when the Republicans, Free Soil, and Liberty parties decided that slavery was too morally repugnant to continue compromising on. Donald Trump is not singularly responsible for this dangerous trend, but he has legitimized and encourages the ends justifies the means viciousness, now pushing the GOP towards becoming the American fascist party. Okay, I'm going to take it for granted that you're just conflating Nazis and fascists because the rest of your article strongly infers that you don't impart such nuances to the concepts you or perhaps your intern are writing about. Which party says Black Americans lack the ability to have identification or know how to use computers? Democrats. Which party openly says that you cease to be a black person if you hold views out of line with their thinking? Democrats, and very specifically Biden, but you can hear it scattered all over the rest of the legacy media and a lot of your compatriots. Which party calls black people who choose to think differently Uncle Toms and house beeps? Which party is trying to reintroduce segregation? Yes, it's the Democrats, attempting to create black-only spaces on campuses and elsewhere. Which party demands people conform to the one drop of blood rule? That's the idea. If you have a single drop of black heritage in your genetics, you are black no matter what. Whereas people of mixed ethnicity often choose to determine what they want to call themselves. Well, not with Democrats. So, sorry there, Herr Reich, but you or your staffer that wrote this are at the very least intellectually dishonest and at worst heinously ignorant. Well, that's where I'm going to end this. That's about all I can take for one evening. So, you have any comments on what Mr. Reich has to say? Feel free to express your opinions below. Good chance I'll respond to you. And, I mean, don't... Okay, I'm ripping on him because he wrote this. Okay, if anybody on the right or any libertarian had written something like this, I'd be tearing it apart just as much. So, prefer if you don't start doing the whataboutisms, because there's lots of problems out there. This is the one that's just stuck in my craw for the day. If you've come to this via the YouTube algorithm and aren't one of my regular subscribers, please consider subscribing. I do all kinds of different content. You can check my titles to see history, economics, philosophy, current events, all kinds of stuff. If you know somebody who might find this interesting, please consider sharing it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.